Recently, I had a chance to speak with Lew Rockwell of both the Mises Institute and LewRockwell.com about Donald Trump, the rise of populism, the economic collapse, martial law, the cashless society, and his late friend Murray Rothbard, the founder of anarcho-capitalism. Now let's see what he had to say. What do you think Murray Rothbard would say now if he saw how the explosion of Austrian economics and its popularity and what's going on with populism in general?
Murray loved populism. And he argued all his life that the only way that in a society like ours that the regular people with the libertarian impulse can reach over the heads of the power elite to the people is by populism. Mm-hmm. It requires a populist. So he loved Ross Perot. He didn't agree with Ross Perot and everything, but he loved the fact of Ross Perot. Mm-hmm. Same with Pat Buchanan. He didn't agree with him on everything, but he just loved. He did like Pat a lot, but I mean, he just loved the fact of Buchanan. He would love the whole Trump movement. Again, he would not because he agrees with Trump about everything, but because all the bad guys hate him, and you know, it's stirring up popular emotion.
Yeah,
the neocons and similar people hate the idea of the people being stirred up. They want everything kept calm, everything boring, nobody interested in anything. They hate it when regular people start to say, "Hey, wait a minute. I'm being ripped off. Mm-hmm. I'm being ripped off by the government, by the power elite, by the crony capitalists in league with the government." Mm-hmm. So he would love this, and he would also be thrilled. And I must say, I don't think really surprised to see how Austrian economics has grown. Mm-hmm. He had so much to do with its growth and survival, in fact, and then its growth in his life. Maybe he's looking down on us. He's very, very pleased if he is, I think, about what's happened. And it's funny, there was a guy recently who was very upset at me because I thought Murray Rothbard was probably the best read economist in the world in terms of how many people are reading him. Far more people are reading him than, say, Keynes or Marx.
Yeah, it's like he's transcended being an economist, and he's kind of like a cult figure in a way. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just how people, especially college-age kids, are attracted to his works.
Yeah, whereas Milton Friedman was supposed to be the guy, but nobody's interested in him. Partly because all his books are so expensive and difficult to get a hold of, whereas Mises Institute made everything of Murray Rothbard's free online. Mm-hmm. But also Murray's such a great writer. Mm-hmm. I mean, he just grabs you, you start reading, and you don't have to be made to read the rest, you just want to read it. So there's many short things of his, Anatomy of the State, that's on the LRC, LewRockwell.com website, on the Mises website too. Just life-changing small essays. You will never again think the same about government if you read his essay on the anatomy of the state. It explains what's going on, who's doing what to whom, and by the way, they're doing it to you. Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of libertarians have issues with Trump, and I don't disagree with them. But I guess my thing with Trump is I kind of feel like he's at least pushing the Overton window up towards liberty, you know, even if that's not his intention, whether it might be. But to me, it feels like he's still kind of inching that Overton window along with Ted Cruz, even Rand Paul. Do you feel that would be the same?
Well, yeah, I have my doubts about Trump, but I liked Justin Raimondo recently said he was anti-Trump. In other words, he really despised the people who were anti-Trump. They were all bad. They were all the bad guys. Yeah. So you know, that has to count for something. Maybe Trump, who knows? Maybe there's a chance he'd do something good. We can be 100% sure that all the rest of them will only do evil. So maybe Trump will only do evil too. It's very, you know, you have to, no human being should ever have the power that an American president has. I mean, for example, he's followed around by an officer, I think it's a colonel, with the codes to set off an atomic war. He can launch all the missiles.
Yeah, that black suitcase they carry with him.
He can destroy the world just on his own say-so. I mean, talk about unwanted power. I mean, that's more than Genghis Khan or Caesar or Hitler or Stalin. Anybody like that had that. So no human being should have that, and no human being should be exercising power over others in a governmental sense anyway. So, you know, once somebody gets in there, you have to worry. On the other hand, there've been, you know, there've been a couple of presidents that maybe they're not good, but they're less bad, who've done.
Yeah, like Eisenhower, for example, who kind of warned us about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, he didn't actually walk the walk, however.
Yeah.
I mean, he expanded the military, But it's true he wasn't as bad as the previous guys and not as bad as the subsequent guys. So he looks, he looks pretty.
I mean, even Nixon nowadays looks better in comparison than Obama or even Hillary Clinton.
Well, at least Nixon wanted to taunt with Russia. I mean, that was a good thing. On the other hand, he killed a lot of people in Vietnam, millions. So I think you have to keep that in account.
You also see kind of a populist revolt here in America. You have like the Trump campaign with even the Ted Cruz campaign, 1 and 2 in the polls. Yet they are, both of them are kind of campaigning as non-establishment outsider candidates. And then what you have is the whole Bundy situation out in Oregon, which is, I haven't seen anything like that since probably the 1990s with Ruby Ridge and Waco and whatnot. And then even you have the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I know he's a socialist, but I think a lot of his supporters are kind of like the whole Occupy Wall Street, more the populist leftist, if you will.
They don't like the banks. So that's at least something good.
Yeah.
I don't think they
know that Bernie Sanders was the one that killed Dodd at the Fed bill, wasn't he?
Well, he's. I always think about the fact that he's actually a warmonger. People think he's a man of peace. He's not a man of peace. He's a warmonger. He's voted for everything Obama did, and he's not a good guy. But some of the people following him have good instincts.
The leftists, the Democrats, once Obama got into office, the whole anti-war wing of the Democrat Party just completely vanished overnight, even though he's practically kept the same policies the Bush administration has, just like Carol Quigley predicted so many years ago.
No, the whole left-wing anti-war movement just dried up and blew away, and they were having demonstrations with hundreds of thousands of people. So it turns out it was all partisan. They hate the Republicans, that's good. But you got to hate the Democrats too. So it was a terrible thing. It shows that the actual anti-war movement, the people who actually oppose this kind of stuff, whether it's a Republican or a Democratic president or anybody else promoting it, we're a relatively small group. But I think we have a lot of support among the people. I think there's a lot more Americans than ever get counted. I think this is some of the Trump support. People think he's an America First guy, and he's less likely to go into another war. So I hope that's correct, because I think he will be the president. Interesting,
you talk about how that you feel like the American president has way too much power that any one individual should have on the planet. Now, recently, I think it was Mitch McConnell who wanted to, I think it was last week, he wanted to rush in the war powers authorization that was basically not limited by geography or time. Meaning that if Obama, so meaning that Obama could even, like, if he wanted to deploy American troops on American soil, practically martial law.
Well, that's what they want, and I've always thought that one of the things that happened after 9/11, I won't say it was entirely a military coup, but it had aspects of a military coup. No question, the military took on far more power than it ought to have, and I would argue probably it shouldn't have any power, but certainly it was massively increased, very, very unfortunately. So, and we know this is what they'd like. They'd like to, if some, just like in Paris, if some city is giving them trouble, maybe not paying the property taxes in a future depression, send in the troops.
That's an interesting point. I mean, the IMF, World Bank, they could ask Obama to deploy troops to this third world country that's behind on their debts, even though the debts are designed for them not to get out of. So you could literally have American troops maybe going in and occupying countries and taking their natural resources and assets to settle these so-called debts.
Or confiscating our guns. Occupying Minneapolis. I mean, they love this kind of stuff. They love people who are in government. They love doing this to people. This is what they get a charge out of. That's why they love wars. They love killing. They love ordering people to be killed, drone strikes. I always think of Obama as when he's signing the death orders over his scrambled eggs in the morning or whatever and enjoying it. This is not good. People who like that kind of stuff, who crave it, not good. I remember reading about an interview that Roy Medvedev had of Khrushchev after he'd been kicked out of power. He's in exile, and he was going to do a book about him. And to me, one of the most interesting things was Khrushchev talked about how he really just was tough for him to hold on to power in one sense because he just was getting old. He felt that he was getting tired of everything. He said at some point in your life you don't care about cars, you don't care about dachas, vacation homes, you don't care about money, you don't care about women, you don't care about food. He said, although the one thing you never tire of is the exercise of power. People like Khrushchev or like Obama or all the other people in government, they love crushing other people, ordering them what to do. They love, and if there's going to be a hurricane, they love ordering people out of their homes, ordering them to go here or there. They just live for that kind of stuff. These are bad people who go into government and rise up in government.
I think a lot of people, they think government's there to protect them, but reality is government's simply a monopoly on the use of force in a given territory. So government, all it's there to do is to not only protect its monopoly, but to expand it.
We only have to look at, every paper you have to sign dealing with the government, there's a threat. If you don't do what they want, they're going to come and get you, and they have the power to jail you.
IRS, like envelopes they send you.
Well, on a parking ticket, they have the power to jail you. If you sufficiently resist, they have the power to kill you. I mean, this is not a nice organization. This is a deadly, I would argue government is mankind's greatest earthly enemy. And the wars it does, the looting it does, the control, it makes us all much poorer than we would be otherwise. It hinders the market, hinders parents in their raising of their children, hinders community development, hinders businesses, churches. They really are a very bad bunch of people. And we're supposed to think that they're superior to us. They're morally superior because they're concerned about, well, the public interest, the public good, where we're in our nasty little lives, we're concerned about our private interests. But because the government has its own interest, which is in power and growth, money, control, their interest, unlike the interest of the butcher, he'd like to sell you more meat, but you don't have to buy the meat. The government, you got to buy the meat, and you don't get the meat. So it's a bad operation.
So with all that said, what do you say to Bernie Sanders supporters that think that you just get Sanders in office and everything's going to be hunky dory?
Well, I'd say a lot of these people have very good instincts. They don't like the crony capitalism. They don't like the banks. They don't like Wall Street, big investment, not just all stocks and bonds, but big investment banks, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, which are, of course, entirely in league with the government. And these kinds of things have been in league with the government since, for more than 100 years. I mean, the U.S. was sending Marines into Guatemala and Haiti to collect bonds the payments on bonds that had been sold to them by Brown Brothers Harriman and the other big investment banks of that era that they weren't paying. So, that's the cozy relationship that's existed for a very long time. So they're right to see there's something dramatically wrong with that. But the idea that by giving more power to the government, which is what Bernie Sanders argues, to this criminal enterprise that is all, I hate to tell any of the regular people in the Bernie Sanders movement, the government pays no attention to somebody like you. They pay attention to the bad guys, the big guys, the crony guys, and Bernie Sanders is going to be no different. He's just going to have a different set of cronies.
Recently, a top economist at Davos Institute, the Davos conference in Switzerland, he admitted that central banks were losing control of the economy, global economy. They're running out of ammo. They basically admitted that Keynesian economics doesn't work anymore, or it never worked to begin with. So it's kind of like they're finally realizing that they're kind of running out of ammunition as far as they can't keep the quantitative easing up to keep the economy like a heroin shot for an addict. So do you have any particular comments on that, on what he said?
Well, I thought there was very interesting comments by Professor White, Dr. White, and I was glad to hear him say it. He's not exactly an Austrian school guy, but he had some good critiques of Keynesianism, and I liked his use of ammo because I think of the central banks as shooting us. So that's so that was a good word, and I think it's absolutely true that the central bankers themselves are worried because I think they've been worried for some time about exactly how long they could keep this up. They're worried about if they do more QE, they're worried about potential hyperinflation, which they don't want any more than we do, and so they'd like to just keep the control on, benefit the banks, benefit the big cronies connected to the various states, and have the rest of us be silent, whether they enact negative interest rates or illegalize cash. I never thought I would feel nostalgic about paper money. I never thought I would like paper money, but as compared to just all digital money, where you can never take your money out of the banks. You can transfer it from bank to bank, but you can't actually take it out. So that's sort of like a Keynesian nightmare for the rest of us come true.
Yeah, even in Austin, like if I go out to like say a bar or coffee shop, you know, they've got these little devices saying that you can pay with your smartphone and whatnot. It's kind of, I feel like it's conditioning people for a cashless society, and people,
That's
you know,
right.
they think it's all trendy and cool, you know, it makes it more convenient, but they don't realize how much control you're handing over to the government with, you know, without cash. It's just like kind of like with people that say with about gold that if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So what do you think the implications with the cashless society would be?
Well, you know, you're very right about this being a propaganda campaign. I remember seeing an ad a couple of years ago now about people are getting coffee in line and they're all paying with their cell phones, and then he was paying with cash and he drops the money on the floor and everybody's disgusted with him and he looks like a fool. What an idiot for wanting to pay with cash. So there's a propaganda campaign, and in fact this has a precedent starting about 1910. There was a big propaganda campaign against ever using gold. You were an idiot, you were a hick, just your gold should always be in the bank. This is before the establishment of the Fed, of course. And then, of course, eventually making possible Roosevelt's confiscation of everybody's gold. But there was a big, you were a boob, you were a country bumpkin, you were just uncool if you wanted to have gold coins and use gold coins. It was very, very important that people use gold coins, and they succeeded in propagandizing a lot of people out of it. So the same thing is happening now. They hate cash. They hate, they hate the banks hate the cash. Governments hate the cash. They want to keep track of every single thing you do with your money, every purchase you make, every dime you have. Where is it going? Do they approve? Is it something they should keep an eye on? Is it just something they should arrest you for? So they want, they want the total cashless society. Ron Paul was talking about this in the 1980s as being something they wanted, and they're making progress towards it. But I think there's a huge amount of opposition to it in Europe as well as here. People don't want to give up their cash.
Yeah, especially after 2013 when Cyprus, all those bail-ins, when the government said that they would force everyone, all the citizens of the country to bail out the banks by confiscating the cash in their bank accounts. So do you think of that fear is based on that? And I mean, that's how I'd see a cashless society going, is they can tax you at will.
Well, that's true, and also they can, again, you could never show lack of confidence in the banks by taking your money out. They fear that. They fear bank runs, even though we're supposed to think that's from the 19th century. It's all been fixed. You never have to worry about that. That's not true. Banks fear that to this day. And so they want to make it impossible to ever have a bank run. So it's, of course, the big banks, the Federal Reserve, the rest of the government, all the big crony corporations, military-industrial complex, big pharma, big agra, they're all in a group together against the rest of us, and they all hate the use of cash. So it's why it's why I think Dr. Joe Salerno always talks about this. Use cash. You use cash, I use cash. Everybody should use cash to the extent they can, because it bugs the banks and it bugs the government, and it's just fun. I mean, it's fun to make a private transaction where things are not being kept, and maybe the guy who's getting the cash, maybe he'll do something good with it, versus send it to the government. So, but they hate cash. Anything they hate, we should love. I mean, it's a good rule of thumb. Just like you should never believe anything they say. Always believe the opposite of what they say. Always do the opposite of what they want you to do.
Where's the Mises Institute going from here? And are you working on any books currently? And I mean, a lot of people that are going to be watching this interview, they're probably not familiar with the Mises Institute. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, come to Mises.org, MISES.org, and everything's free. There's a vast amount of materials on there. If you're interested in what the Fed is doing, what the government is doing to the economy, how the government is hurting you, how the Fed is hurting you, that's the place to go. And there's all kinds of levels of stuff too. There's things for people who are just starting, there are things for people who are very, very advanced, and everything in between. So great books and so that's what the Mises Institute exists to spread the truth about Austrian economics, about libertarianism, about war and peace, and sound money, all these very, very important issues. And we find there's just huge interest among young people, much more so than used to be the case all over the world. So we have student programs, educational programs at the Institute. We have things like this Mises Circle in Houston where we go around the country. We have academic journals, we have popular publications, we publish books, we publish newsletters, we publish just a whole range of things, and especially on the web, we have just a gigantic library of let's say if somebody's interested in sort of popular writing on some economic issue, the minimum wage, which is being promoted by all the leftists right now.
Yeah, I think it was the Bernie Sanders article that you had out. I think it was probably your most viral. That was on the Mises Daily for the past year. Well, what's one book that you would recommend for Bernie Sanders supporters that they see the problem, but maybe not the solution in particular? They don't understand that the Federal Reserve's behind everything that they see as the problem.
You know, it's a great book, and it's I believe it's free online. It's certainly not much, by Tom Woods, called Bernie Sanders is Lying.
Well, there you go.
It's a great explanation of all the various baloney that he's handing out, and Tom slices and dices it and tells you what the story is. He's another very wonderful and compelling writer.
We believe in win-win, folks, treating people like we want to be treated. That's why we develop nutraceuticals with Dr. Group and other top researchers, chemists, scientists, you name it. He's one of our advisors, to come up with products like Anthroplex that is an original product that he made just for us. And this is a base system to make super male or super female vitality work even better. It is natural. It just helps get your body pumping and going in the way you need to be going. And Dr. Group is here till we go to break to tell us about the latest product at InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, that out of the gates, and we do this all the time with a new product, we discount it out of the gates to get you to try it, knowing that you're going to love it. It'll sell out. So InfoWarsLife.com, Anthroplex, 15% off and free shipping for the next 2 days only when you get it with super male or female vitality. Let's go to Dr. Group. Why do you call this the foundation to start the fire, and then the super male takes you to the next level?
Well, we just look at the base problem that's going on right now all over the world, which is the endocrine disrupting chemicals, the amount of estrogen that men have, the femininity of men, and what's going on even in children right now with low testosterone levels, low sperm count levels, and the problems and the attack that we're seeing on the endocrine systems of both male and female. So I'm always looking for ways to boost that and to make it more effective and naturally get the body to start producing these hormones and balancing themselves. So what we decided to do was, how can we add a few other components in there that would actually boost the effectiveness of the super male vitality, and at the same time address different issues that the male might have, so it would be a full approach. And one of those was zinc. And zinc is actually necessary for the production of testosterone. There's more and more studies coming out that zinc is essential for hormone balancing.
What is in the goatweed? You've got one of the purest, strongest organic forms of it. What's so magic about the goatweed?
Well, the horny goatweed was given that name because years ago in India, they noticed that a certain time of the year, this weed would grow and the goats would eat it, and they would just go crazy with all the female goats. So that's how it was developed. It's called epimedium. And what that's been proven to do over thousands of years is increase sexual pleasure, help balance the male hormones. It can actually be used for women as well, but it really kind of resets and brings the hormone balance, improves sperm motility, and increases testosterone
So
level.
it counters the stuff they've been throwing at us. Results will vary overall. All I know is dynamite. I mean, absolutely dynamite with the stamina, with the weightlifting, with the swimming. Folks, the new product is available. Anthroplex, available at InfoWarsLife.com. Dr. Group, thank you for developing this amazing product.
Thank you.